Spencer, you might want to flip back to the first slide too.
Oh, right. Oh, good call. There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are.
Morning, everyone. Hi.
So we're just going to wait a few minutes here to let a bunch of people join, and then we'll get started. So we are using Sidekick for this training session as usual, but this time we're also going to have a little poll happening at the end. So make sure you get on Sidekick for this one. We've also got a ton of resources to look at. So if you haven't already been using Sidekick, this is definitely the one training session where you do want to be in Sidekick. So have a look at that. I just put the link in chat.
مامانی حالا یه چشمش دو ابرو بکش.
And then one other thing, everyone, we also have an attendance form as usual. The link is in the chat as well, so please do fill that out. It's just what your name is, and then we can make sure we know that you've attended. I'll put the Sidekick link one more time as well, so that everyone can see it. We'll just wait about 2 more minutes to let more people join. Yes, so we can get the recording link for the previous sessions. It should have been in the invite that you got for this session. And then also it will be on YouTube as well, I believe. If you can't find it, we can just put it in the chat before we start.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
there we
put the
go.
link to our playlist, our 2023-24 playlist, which will have, it currently has the first 2 trainings, and we'll be putting this one and the next one on it too.
All right, I think I'm just gonna get started now. So good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. So yeah, super exciting to be doing our 3rd training session, which is diverse and inclusive messaging. So before we start, I just want to talk about Sidekick really quick, which is the platform that we've been using in the previous training sessions. And it's sort of just to accompany the main presentation to see resources and stuff. So please click the link in the chat to join Sidekick, and you'll be able to, again, see the resources. And also we're going to be doing a poll later. So you'll want to participate in that. And then, yeah, so if you've already created an account for the previous training sessions, then yeah, you can just use the same account. And if you haven't made an account yet, then you can go ahead and make a new account. Please just use the email that we've been using to email you with all of our communications, because that's the email we've added to the Sidekick. And then once you've signed in, click on today's event, which is training session 3, and then click the enter event button at the bottom, and then you should be joined in. So I'll give you guys a few more seconds to do that. Not seconds, maybe minutes.
There's a game for those that are, I think most people are playing it, but if you're in
Right,
Sidekick
yes.
while we're waiting, there's a game you can.
Is it the side scroller today? Oh yeah, that's a fun one.
I think if you hold down the space bar, you get a bigger, longer jump.
I'm sure we've got some crazy high scores going right now. So hopefully most people are in Sidekick by now. So I think we will go ahead and get started with the rest of our stuff. So yeah, so here's a brief rundown of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to start by talking about diversity, why it's important, and show you some really cool data. Next, we're going to tell you a little bit about what stereotype threat is and how that relates to what we're doing. And then we have a discussion activity, which should be really fun, sort of like the previous discussions that we've had. And then finally, we're going to give you some tips and best practices that you can use. As usual, we'll have a Q&A at the end, but we will be looking at chat for any questions that you have, so don't hesitate to just ask whenever you want. If we don't get to your question right away, we'll get to it at the end. So yeah, as usual, we also have a quote for you. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusiveness is being asked to dance. That's a sort of fun little quote.
Yeah.
So if you haven't met us before, this is our small but mighty team. I'm Spencer. I'm a professional program coordinator. Leia is also going to be presenting today, so she can introduce herself later. And then Sarah and Rebecca, if you guys want to introduce yourselves right now. Go
Hi,
ahead.
I'm Sarah. I think I've met most of you now. I'm the operations manager here at Engineers of Tomorrow. Please let me know if you ever need anything along the way. We're here to support you.
Ditto. I'm not Sarah though. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca, and really happy to have this amazing team that's helping make the best possible experience for everyone this year. And truly we are here to help. Doesn't matter how small or big your question is, that is what we're here for. Enjoy the rest of the training.
Thanks, guys. So, yeah. So moving on. So, wait, sorry. I'm a little flustered, sorry. Okay. So when we refer to diversity, we mean involving any group that historically has been intentionally excluded and who still face systematic barriers and biases, such as Black, Indigenous, and peoples of color, women, gender diverse folks, and people with different abilities. So our goal is to effectively attract and retain diverse and talented individuals, and we need to trust in the science of social psychology to do that. It tells us what we can do better to enhance STEM outreach. But why focus on diversity in engineering? Well, it's really so that we can have more diverse perspectives. So this is really important because engineers solve extremely complex problems. And so we need diverse perspectives to be able to think about how we can find solutions in different ways. Another great reason is that engineers are solving problems to help our society. And when we don't represent that society that we are trying to solve these problems for, then of course we risk gaps in these solutions. A great classic story that is a great example of this is about how seatbelts were created. So since women traditionally did not drive, seatbelts were originally designed by men just for men. And so when women started driving, we started to see a lot of seatbelt injuries because the original design did not account for different demographics. Which is kind of interesting. So one of the causes of lack of diversity in the workplace is stereotype threat and stereotypes in general. So stereotype threat is a situational predicament in which people feel themselves to be at risk of conforming to stereotypes about their social groups. So this can be in regards to race, cultural background, ethnic background, gender, physical and mental capabilities, and more. So it's purportedly a contributing factor to long-standing racial and gender gaps and academic performance. So some consequences of stereotyping and stereotype threat is that it undermines performance. So when experiencing stereotype threat, you become hyperfixated on your or self-conscious in your abilities to do something because you're thinking that you're automatically placed at a disadvantage because of who you are. So this hyper awareness can really cause a lack of confidence as it triggers concerns about belonging. You'll get negative thoughts and emotions about whether or you get negative thoughts and emotions about whether or not you belong in the engineering field or any other workplace, specifically because of how you're treated or how you think you're going to be treated because of your background. Additionally, it lowers engagement and retention. When you start to focus on your own capabilities and you think you're at fault rather than your environment, you start to not only lose confidence in your working, you start to not only lose confidence, but your working memory is also affected. You feel like you're going to perform less just because of who you are in general, and it can be really bad to the point where it threatens health and it threatens mental health. It can even deter someone completely from pursuing something because they don't think that they're going to be good enough. So there's also a great analogy for stereotype threat. So imagine that there are two runners on a track. One runner is told to wear ankle weights, so they're automatically placed at a disadvantage and have to work harder to achieve the same goal as the second runner, get to the finish line. When the ankle weights are removed, both runners are on equal footing. There are no additional factors that hinder either one's performance. They can run towards the finish line under the same conditions. We might even find, in this case, that the person who previously wore ankle weights might be a little bit faster because, they're used to ankle weights and now they're lighter. And you can also think about what happens if someone is just told that they're wearing ankle weights, even though they're not actually wearing ankle weights. So it can really affect their mental game and thus their performance, even though there might be no physical difference between them and other runners. So this type of situation arises more often than you think, with other external or environmental pressures holding back people's performances. Stereotypes about people's abilities based on factors like their cultural background, race, and gender undermine their performance this way. If these pressures are removed, they perform even better than if the pressures were there. Researchers at Waterloo and Stanford looked at test performance under stereotype threat and under reduced threat from data of over 15,000 students in 5 countries. This shows that our assumptions about women having less ability, for example, is completely false. When we remove the biases that affect their performances, they perform every bit as well as men. We know that this gap is worth working to close because when we lose the performance of these students, we also lose their contribution to the engineering profession. So any new designs, new inventions that they would have thought up just don't exist if they're not doing well. So you guys, as outreach leaders, so you have the ability to start changing this. Take the ankle weights off. Woohoo! So moving in to some stats now. We've got some really interesting stats. I'm sure as engineers, you guys all love stats. Just to give you some sort of context and baseline, the current information comes from this is the current information that comes from Engineers Canada. And what we have is that we have 19.8% of newly licensed engineers are women in Canada. Some of you may be aware that there's actually an initiative by Engineers Canada called 30 by 30. And so what it is that, so the target is to have 30% newly licensed engineers be women by the year 2030. And that's pretty cool. Additionally, we have 0.73% of employed engineers identify as Indigenous. So as I mentioned, this data is taken from Engineers Canada. On their website, they have published a published report. It's called a review of practice consensus that you can refer to. We've also put a bunch of links to other Engineers Canada reports in Sidekick if you want to go read those yourselves, and that's sort of where we're getting all this data from. It's important to note that these numbers don't paint a full picture of diversity in engineering, but it does show us a lot of gaps that we need to fill and unmet needs that we need to work towards fulfilling within the engineering profession. So we've got more stats as well. This primarily speaks to what's happening in Ontario. This data comes from an organization called the Ontario Network of Women in Engineering, which is an amazing organization. If you're interested in exploring further, we encourage you to check out their website. They've got cool stuff. So 27.3% is the proportion of growth in women students enrolled in environmental engineering since 2018. Female engineering faculty in Ontario was only 16.5% in 2019, which is
Sorry to interrupt. Are there slides being shared?
there should be. Oh my God, have I not been sharing the slides? Oh,
No, we can see them.
Yeah, you can see.
There's only one slide that I'm looking at or have been looking at for this whole time.
We
Oh,
can
no.
see. I wonder,
Maybe try leaving and coming back into the Zoom meeting. And then if that doesn't work, we are going to share like a copy of the slide deck too, as well as the recording. So hopefully be able to follow along that way.
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry about that.
Good. Let me just jump in and out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
So as I just said, 16.5% of the faculty across Ontario was female, and I think that's one where I think that's pretty low, and I think really increasing that is really going to have a big effect on the amount of women we can put in engineering, which is awesome, which would be awesome. And then also in 2019, 22.1% of the engineering degrees were awarded to women. So similar to the stat on the last slide, in Ontario, 20.7 of newly licensed engineers were women in 2020. And actually, this is not a stat on this slide, but one of the things that we're really proud of at Engineers of Tomorrow is that we have so many volunteers that are women. So I think we have about 40% of our volunteers are women, which is just awesome. And so we're really grateful to all of you guys for deciding to be those role models, especially women. Thank you guys. And yeah, so now we're going to be moving into a discussion.
Thank you, Spencer. Those were really interesting informations. I guess for the rest of the presentation, you'll have some time to discuss, and then we'll tell you ways that we think that you can help to pretty much do something about these stats that we were talking about. And you can do this whoever you are, whatever gender you are, whatever, everyone can have an impact on this. Okay, so for our discussion, we're going to put you in breakout rooms for 5 minutes, pretty similar to what we've done in the past. And pretty much we're going to do this to let you discuss your experience with stereotype threats, which could be whether you've experienced it or facilitated it or witnessed it, really anything about that and what you've learned about that. So we have a few questions that are here right now to guide you. The first being if you've ever experienced it, then how you feel about these systemic factors that are holding back our efforts to make engineering more equitable. And finally, if there is a part of you resisting these insights. So you can either use these questions that you see on the screen right now, or you can really discuss it in another way, really whatever you're more comfortable with. And when you're in breakout rooms, you may not be able to see these. So the link to this slide is shared in Sidekick, but if you're not there, you could also take a picture if you want. So we're going to give you about 5 minutes and then come back and discuss it as a group. So Spencer, can you launch the breakout rooms? Okay, so you can click on the little join a breakout room button and join whichever room. And
yep, join whatever room you want. We want to have maybe about 3, maybe 4 people in each room. And yeah, we'll give you 5 minutes to go chat and then you guys can come back. And also we'll be, at least I will be staying in the main room if you guys want to discuss here. So anyone who stayed behind will stay here and discuss.
Spencer, are you able to move people around in rooms? Because I see there's a few that just have one person.
I am, but also everyone's allowed to pick their own rooms. So hopefully people go fill in the rooms that only have one person.
Okay, I'm gonna pop over to one now.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Sorry. So how do I get myself to a room? Where are the
So
options?
on the there should be somewhere on your Zoom, there should just be like a toolbar with a bunch of buttons, and there should be a breakout rooms button on there. It's just 4 squares. That's what the button sort of looks like.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. So everyone's still in the main room. Do you guys have anything to say to answer these questions? Do you have any ideas?
Oops.
If not, I can go ahead and go first. So I'm gonna maybe answer the question in the middle here. How do you feel learning about these systemic factors that are holding back our efforts to make engineering inclusive and equitable? So I think that really a lot of the systemic factors in my eyes, it's sort of a lot of it is just, it just takes a long time for stuff to trickle down. So if we have a lot more, for example, if we have a really diverse faculty in universities, that will lead to maybe more diverse students who are doing better. And that leads to more diverse engineers in training, and that leads to more diverse professional engineers. So I think really it takes a while to trickle down from that top level, from the faculty. And then I think it's sort of unfortunate at how behind the faculties are with making it more diverse. So I think it's just a little unfortunate that we're sort of being really slow about this, but we are making progress, which is great. So hopefully soon we will have, we'll be more diverse all around the place, and we can get better, more broad perspectives and better solutions to stuff, which would be awesome.
I went over to a breakout room, Spencer, and I ended up back here because there wasn't actually anyone there.
Oh no.
So I hope there's a couple people here who might want to have a chat.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a bunch of people in here if anyone wants to speak.
Nice.
I think I got booted from that room. It just like kicked me out. I'm not entirely sure what happened.
I
Oh,
think
no.
it did that to me too. I ended up back here. We can talk here. I can say, like, for me, when I was in high school and even in university, the vast majority of the educators that I had experience with were men. And I mean, I guess I was fortunate in that I still saw potential as a woman in moving forward with the engineering profession. But looking back, it would have been really nice to have some modeling and see some women who were in the profession, or at least teaching the science courses, and I could maybe see myself in them as a model. And so for me as an EIR, gosh, I love going into the classroom and saying, hey, I'm a woman, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I live in your community. I'm in a really small town. And so for people to see that, hey, someone in my community can actually be an engineer, and someone who, has a family can be an engineer, I think that that's really important modeling. And so I hope that that means that there are young girls in my community who see that modeling and see it as an opportunity for them, and certainly don't hold themselves back when it comes to science and math and the other foundational things that will get them into engineering. Has anyone else had any kinds of experiences like that? Maybe not even just as a man or a woman, but any kind of stereotyping that you feel like hasn't been modeled or has held them back?
I think for me, I've seen a little of both from what Spencer and Sarah said. from one side, you've had, I've been to uni where it was a little diverse. We had people from different races, so from all over the world actually. So on one side, you get to have an idea and combine ideas from different perspectives, and it's a really great experience. And on the other hand, our classes, by the end of the second or third year, it was only guys left. So we started with about maybe 5 to 6 ladies who were with us, and by the end of the third year, it was just 10 of us who were only guys. So I think there is something that needs to be done there somewhere, that has to be able to fix this somehow.
Yeah, that's really interesting perspective that happened to you. And like, I was really struck by one of the statistics that Spencer shared, the one about the number of Indigenous engineers. And I just think about like how much focus there is right now on truth and reconciliation. And I think that's only going to grow. And how can we as a profession provide solutions and insights when we're not even represented by those groups? And so I'm glad to hear that your university started very diverse. I hope that those folks just ended up in other disciplines, but what a shame that it's being only...
Right.
Yeah. I think I'm going to pull the, actually, we can leave the breakout rooms open for a little while. I think everyone's probably having good discussions.
Does anyone else want to share here in room 1?
Yeah. One in main room.
Yeah, I guess I've been fairly lucky, like I'm in terms of being a woman coming into engineering, I'm kind of after that forefront where people had to fight, where there were no women's change rooms and that type of stuff. So I can't say that I've really experienced it, but I do really appreciate what some of the other people have had to do so that I could be in this position, right? I think that's important to recognize.
Yeah, interesting perspective to go into a workplace that doesn't even have change rooms potentially, but people have kind of forged the path to make it easier for future women. I think that's wonderful. I certainly have been in those workplaces as well. Yeah, so like when I think about talking to girls in schools, maybe they haven't experienced that so much either, but I think it's really important to recognize it because it's probably still out there, especially in some smaller communities. Something else that I really notice is that in high school, kids are often really significantly praised for athletic ability, but not super often for academic achievement. And so in my kids' high school, we really try to, I do a lot of work with the math program, and we really try to acknowledge the kids that do well in math and really make sure that they're celebrated as much as the kids who are winning medals in sports too.
I think there's been more of a shift. Before it used to be more academics, now it's more sports. So we've got to strike the balance, like a bit of academic, a bit of sports as well.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, another thing, maybe this is another stereotype threat thing where if there is a student who's academic, like they might feel, if they're especially surrounded by people who are all athletic, they might feel like they're like really forced into like just doing academics. And if they want to like do a sport as well, it becomes like really tough. And then, it can be hard on mental health and everything. If they're sort of being like forced into like the nerd role and that's not who they want to be.
Right.
I think I'm going to pull back everyone from the other breakout rooms, and then we can have a chance to maybe have anyone share in front of the entire group if they want. So that will take about a minute while everyone comes back. Welcome back, breakout room people.
Spencer, just a quick question. I may have to drop off due to work commitments in about 5 minutes, but I assume that all the slides would be available, right, on the Sidekick
Yep,
platform?
For
Okay,
sure. Everything's available after we have the recording as well if you want to watch that. So yeah, for sure. Thank you for coming.
thank you so much.
Have a good day.
You too, thanks.
Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully I didn't cut off any conversations.
You gave a pretty good warning. It was,
I tried to give a good warning this time. I know last time I didn't give a good warning.
no, I think it worked out pretty well. I had some really good discussions in my breakout room. I hope everyone had some good discussions. I guess if anyone had anything they wanted to share, totally optional. It's okay if no one wanted to, but we can give a bit of time for that if someone, I don't know, had an experience or comment.
I
If
would
not-
love to share something we talked about because it was really different from some of the examples that came up at the beginning of the presentation. We talked about kids who are celebrated for athletic ability and less so for academic ability. And I know for me as an EIR, I work with my school's math team. And I find that it's a really great opportunity for me to help kids that are really math sharp and really sciencey. It's a chance for me to help them feel good about it and to celebrate that. Because oftentimes those kids, they're maybe pegged as nerds, or maybe they don't want people to know that they're on the math team, but we try to create a really inclusive environment and really just celebrate that ability and make it feel, maybe for an hour at a time, make it feel a little bit cool. So I really value that opportunity as an EIR to bring that to those kids in our small community.
I raised my hand. I wanted to add to that because you made me remember something too, Sarah. Like on the flip side of that, some of the kids that get pegged as sporty kids feel like they can't pursue an academic path. And I ran a first Lego League team a few years back now, and it was all sporty kids, all kids that like played hockey or competitive swimming, all sporty like kind of backgrounds. And it was really neat to see how they could use their like their strengths in a more academic way. It was really fun too.
I'm so glad to hear that because so many kids just think, you know, I'm not good enough to be on the robotics team. I'm not good enough to be on the math team, but everyone has something to add. So I think that's really cool.
And that is really cool. I feel like I've noticed that too a lot in my program at Waterloo. There's quite a few people in my cohort who are also like varsity athletes. It's like there's so many people who like can do both. Like they can just be strong in different things, and that's just really cool that they found a way to continue on with both of their passions, I guess. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. If no one else has anything to say, I guess we will now continue on to some things that you can do to pretty much try to include more diversity in the classroom. So Spencer, could you go next slide, please? Okay, so we're going to talk about, some outreach interventions that you should probably just be aware of when teaching diversity and inclusivity to a classroom. Sorry. These actions can help you design a more inclusive STEM outreach experience. Okay, so the first one is really to be relatable. You want to connect with teachers and students as a human. You want to see that, if you're like a real person who makes mistakes and then they'll be able to relate to that more. Also, whenever possible, try to let leaders from historically intentionally underrepresented groups lead activities and address your event participants so that they can see themselves in that leadership role. So next, promoting a growth mindset and emphasizing the importance of effort, persistence, and gradual improvement over time, as opposed to like immediate results or innate ability, makes for a much safer environment for students. Like really try to share stories of your failure and your recovery from that failure. Mention the importance of continuing to improve and grow your brain. As we know, I think that constant improvement is really a part of engineering, right? We're always solving problems, trying to find something that we can do better. So if the students can understand that and see that it's okay to have failures, to make mistakes, that's really getting a good message across. So try to say things like, keep trying, working hard, and you'll get it eventually. Everyone makes mistakes at the beginning, and try to ask them, what can you learn from this? Like ultimately, I think you can gain a lot more than you lose when you fail something, especially if you're in like a safe classroom environment. Finally, choose relatable role models with accomplishments outside of work, and don't be afraid to talk about your work's social environment and importance. An example of this, when presenting female STEM role models, remember that femininity and STEM are not antithetical. One can enjoy traditional feminine things and still be very capable in solving important, difficult problems and doing technical work. And we do have an example of this later on. Okay, so to continue on with some other outreach interventions. Next is to maintain high standards, because high standards indicate that students will not be judged and that we think they are capable of reaching these standards. Like, don't give up on the kids who don't get it right away. Encourage them, but don't change the task for them. Because when you change a task for them to make it easier, it can seem to them like you don't believe in them overcoming obstacles if they don't get something right away. And like, I know personally for that, when we had projects in school, it was really, even if I went to a teacher and was like, I don't know how to do this, the fact that they didn't like make it easier for me, maybe they would like give me a strategy I could try or something, it made me believe in myself more, to be like, okay, maybe I can figure this out. And I think it's really important to show them that it is possible for them to do it. And let's see, also show that you value diversity. So if you're comfortable sharing, talk about the barriers you may have faced if you're in the underrepresented community, like LGBTQ, women, non-binary, differently abled, economically disadvantaged, and really anything else. There's so many different ways that everyone is different. So try to share that experience with the students. Okay, so we'll now talk about some best practices that you can try to implement. So first off is to save important cultural dates. So we do have an example from this from one of our longtime EIRs, that once they did an activity that had edible components in the classroom, but some of the students were fasting at that point, so they couldn't fully participate, and the EIR hadn't known at that point. So to prevent this from happening again, they started keeping track of all of these cultural dates that some students may be celebrating. And we really think this is a best practice to keep in mind as an EIR, because you want to be able to include as many people as possible and be accepting of whatever other things that may be happening in their lives. Okay, next, normalizing failure is really important. So talk about how failure provides us with important information on how we can improve our designs. Then learn about your biases. There is a free online tool that can help with this. There's the link right here in the slide. So when you visit the slide later, you can access it, or it's also in Sidekick that kind of like test your biases. Yeah. And finally, show all your sides. So this is a really cool example. This is someone named Vanessa. What happened to my, sorry, something. Okay, well, oops. This is someone named Vanessa Vicaria, sorry, also known as the math guru. And she's a great example of a STEM leader who also shows her feminine traits, because she contributes to STEM. She also plays in a rock band. She really shows kids that you can do so many things at once. She runs a tutoring center based in Toronto. So some of you may have heard of her. If not, you could totally look her up. She's a really cool inspiration, I think, for kids. Okay, so we will now move on to a quiz. Let me see. So if you are in Sidekick, let me see, you should be able to see the quiz appear now, hopefully. Is it working? Great. Okay, so there are different questions. There's not necessarily one right answer. Don't worry. Like, just answer it for what you think is best, and we'll maybe go over it after. I guess I can read the questions at the same time for the people who are not in Sidekick. But pretty much, okay, so the first question is, a female student approaches you and tells you she is feeling left out of an activity by the other students in her group. What should you do? So I see some responses starting to come in. Most people are putting, let the teacher know. They know the students best and can work with them to mitigate this behavior. That's 100% true, because we're not always there in the classroom, right, as an EIR. So it's really good for the teacher to be aware of that, because they know the students best. Also, a lot of people encouraged her group members to include her and find opportunities where she could contribute. That can be great too. No one is saying tell her to ignore it. That's good. That would be the not ideal answer, I would say. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. So what is the importance of diversity and inclusivity in engineering? So again, here there are multiple right answers. The most common one here is it provides different perspectives on real world issues, which is great, really true. Also, it allows us to combine ideas to solve complex problems, and it forces us to recognize discrimination in the workplace and how to remove it. Those are all really great. No one put there is no benefit, so that's that's really great to see too. Okay, if I go to the next question, a majority of the students in the class you are teaching belong to a single demographic. Is it still worth showing them the importance of diversity in engineering? Everyone put yes, great. For sure, because it's super important, so they know that it's something that they will encounter and that is really valuable to them. They don't want to always be with people who are exactly the same as them. They'll get so many more diverse opinions. So great to hear. And last question. You noticed one student is treated unfairly by their partner and penalized for their mistakes more than their peers. This student is not misbehaving or treating anyone with disrespect, and they're a member of a visible minority group. What should you do? So most people said continually encourage the others to accept the student's idea. Like them, the student is an important asset to the team. Very true. Everyone has their own ideas. Everyone is very important. And some people said, ask the student if they would prefer to change groups, and chastise the other students for being mean. Their actions have consequences. I would say maybe not chastise them, but you can have a discussion with them and understand what why it's important to include everyone. Does anyone have anything to add about any of those questions?
I'm curious to know if anyone, because I know we have some EIRs that have participated in the program over the past few years, has come up against or across any of these scenarios. And if not, that's great. That means you're probably doing an awesome job.
Very true. No, there's so many different scenarios like this that can happen, and it can be hard to know what to do, but that's why also as a community, we're here to support you. So you can always, if you feel like something isn't going well, you can always email us or anything and we can talk it out with you.
And I think it's a great thing about the design of this program is you're not just seeing the students once, you're going to see them regularly. So it's really going to give you a chance to kind of observe what's going on in the classroom. And maybe the first time you take note of, oh, there's a girl in the back who doesn't raise her hand. So you can sort of play around with some of these different interventions and try out these different kind of design points for your work that's happening in the classroom to develop that relationship and connection with that particular student.
Yep. And just so you guys know, we're not like recording your answers in this or anything. It's totally just to see what we just want to see what people would think to start a discussion. So, okay, so guess I will finish the quiz.
Just from I found that having a discussion with the teacher beforehand, assuming the teacher is open-minded and really aware of the students in the class, to just, you don't want to single out specific students, but there's many times where they'll say, this one's a bit of a challenge, this one doesn't participate, and you don't want to play favorites, but you also want to know a little bit about the makeup of the class. This is typically earlier in the year when you're when you're first encountering the class.
No, thanks for sharing. That is a really good point, because even if you're going on a regular basis, you're not going to see them as much as the teacher does. So they know their students better. It's good to rely, in general, it's good to rely on them for who you can interact with more, things like that. So no, that's good. That's really nice to hear. Thanks for sharing. Okay, I guess we can now move on. Okay, so we have another important quote here to end things off and to wrap it up. So we as EIRs, and also as just people in general, we're still learning about their biases, who are learning about diversity and inclusivity, and about valuing it in anything we do, regardless of the engineering profession, right? In engineering, but also in your everyday life. just know that your contribution matters. Also, your energy level matters, and you are not alone, and we're all dealing with our biases. So I think it's important to note that even though you are teaching these concepts to kids, you're probably also learning about diversity with them. So it's okay if things like if you slip up sometimes, it's important to just jump back and learn about it and learn about your failures, your mistakes, your successes. We're all just really learning as we go. Like the story I told earlier about our EIR with the eating in the classroom. It's, you know, they learned from it and came back better next time. So that's what we want. It's learning experience for the students, but also for us. Okay, so here, oh yeah, we just have some special thanks we want to give. So first of all, a big thank you to Enable Education and Nick, who's actually here with us, so they gave us access to Sidekick, and Nick has been helping us along with using Sidekick, and it's been a really great resource for quizzes and resources and stuff. So thank you so much for that. And we also have our sponsors here. And yeah, except for that, okay, yeah, here are references. Again, you can come consult them after in the slideshow. Pretty much there's some, yeah, just some different resources on like discrimination and on, I don't know if the Engineer Canada things are here, but they're in Sidekick. So
yeah, we've got tons of stuff here in Sidekick and everywhere. Totally go check it out when you have time.
Yes. And yeah, so that is all that we wanted to get through. If you haven't filled out the attendance form, this is a QR code, and it's also still in the chat, I'm sure. And we just have 2 upcoming events left. So you have 1 training session left next week at the same time, and that will be about building connections. So that'll be a really cool one. We're still working on it, but it's really, we're giving you a bunch of tips to how to connect all with the classroom. And yeah, and then the kickoff event that will be in September. So now if you guys have any questions, we like to open it up for any questions, comments, whatever you wanted to add.
And thanks, Leah. And we'll hang around for a little bit if anybody has questions about this training or anything else. We're here to answer those questions for you. So feel free to drop off if you're all set and don't have any questions. Otherwise, we'll hang out for another 10 or 15 minutes here.
Yeah, I have a question. This is my first time in this program. I guess what's for the first class that we go to? I'm not sure what the expectations are like. I guess it might depend on the teacher, how well you get along with the teacher, but are you supposed to just go in there and dive right in, or you just gonna take it from the teacher?
Yeah, Sarah, definitely better. You can answer that, but just wanted to say we will be talking a bit about it next session. But yeah, Sarah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry, Thomas, like it's a great question. I get this question all the time. I certainly suggest like definitely talk to the teacher and make sure that your expectations and their expectations are clear so that there's no confusion going in at the beginning. If you're not sure what to start with, a great first place to start is by going in and talking about yourself. Tell your engineering story. We had a great session last week on how to tell your engineering story. And answer kids' questions and use that as an opportunity to start to gauge their curiosity and start to understand them better. And that will help you for the future sessions to know what types of activities they might be into. But certainly share that with the teacher that that's your plan and get their thoughts on it and just make sure that everyone's expectations are aligned. And just along with that, I mean, I hope you were at the session that we did on telling your engineering story, just going in and being your authentic self and leveraging what we just learned about diversity and inclusion and humble yourself and go in there and share who you are. That can form a great conversation with the kids. And I do think it's a great first step with them. I hope that answers your question.
Oh yeah, I guess we'll see when I go in there my first class.
Yeah.
Hope they don't string me up, or they're not going to make me walk through hot coals to initiate into the classroom or something.
I sure hope not.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, as someone who's been in grade school not that long ago, we often had people, like, I don't think I ever had an engineer come into the class, which would have been really fun, but we did have like other people, like I think we had like a stockbroker at one point, like a, poet, and it would be just people, I don't know, I'd never met a stockbroker before. So just hearing, they just told their story, right? Like how they got into it and like what they do. And I just found that really cool. Like I think I was probably in like grade 5 or something. And I still remember that. I found it pretty interesting. So really just presenting yourself and sharing what you do. They may not have met someone like that before. So it could be really interesting.
even in like higher grades also, like my school had like a career day when I was in grade 12. And so obviously I already knew what I was going to be doing, but it was really great to just like have a bunch of completely random people who were working a bunch of completely random jobs come in and then like tell us about their jobs. And I was like, whoa, like these are some cool jobs that I've never heard of. And then like be able to ask them some questions and then find out sort of what path took them there. It was really interesting. So doing that for engineering for your class is like really great, and people would totally love that. I'm sure the students are so curious about what you do once you tell them a little bit about them. Once you tell them a little bit about yourself, they'll just be like, whoa, and then they'll have a ton of questions.
Yeah, and I totally did not know what I was going to do at the end of high school, so I would have definitely loved that also in higher grades. So
I've been lucky enough to be a guest when one of our EIRs was visiting a class, and I think it was a grade like 3, 4 sort of age. And the kids were coming in from recess, and they saw the engineer, and this was like later in the year, so they had met their engineer already like a bunch of times, and they were running into the class and they were like, our engineer is here, our engineer is here. So it's also a real good like ego boost if anyone is feeling like they want to like feel what it's like to be a bit of a celebrity in the classroom.
Oh, we have a hand up from Mike.
Yeah, hi, hello. I was just thinking of a story from a few years ago, and it wasn't engineering, but it was when I was coaching a trail running thing, boys and girls and kids starting about age 6 up to through high school. And with one of the groups at one of the stations, I was showing them how to do push-ups, because that was part of it, run a lap, do some push-ups or whatever exercises. So I showed them how to do the regular push-ups and then knee push-ups. And one of the boys started chuckling and calling them girl push-ups. And I told him, well, no, that's not right. And I called one of the other coaches over who she's actually an engineer, but she's also an ultra marathoner in incredible shape. So I asked the kid, show us how many push-ups you can do. And he did about 8 or 9. And then I asked Heidi, can you show us some push-ups? And once she hit about 25 or so, I told her that was good enough. So then I asked the kid, maybe we should call those girl push-ups, huh? And he just sort of chuckled and nodded his head in. Yeah, a little bit of a lesson. Yeah.
That's great.
So wait, Mike, were you the one that was saying to chastise the other kids when you answered that poll question?
What's that, sorry?
One of the poll questions, the answers was to chastise the other kids. Yeah, so
No,
I
I didn't answer that. That wasn't chastising. That was
No,
just
no.
an experiment
Yeah.
with some data produced where, you can draw your own conclusions.
Absolutely. Love it.
That's great. All right. Any other questions from anyone or any other stories anyone wants to share? Again, feel free to drop off if you don't have any questions. We're just going to hang around a bit longer in case anyone needs anything. I love your perspective, Leah, on having guest speakers when you were in grade school. I remember the same thing. We had someone come in and do junior achievement, and it was a man who had worked in the stock market for many years. And he taught us how to open the newspaper and look at the stock quotes for the day, because this is pre-internet days. And I just remember thinking, like, this is so weird. I've never heard of anything like this before. And it was just like, eye-opening, like people do this. It was just so interesting to me. And so like, I mean, I didn't obviously become a stockbroker, but like, it's just neat for kids to see that people have these really weird jobs that they've never heard of before.
yeah, and like engineers can do some very maybe not weird, but very specific things that I didn't even know people did. So like it can be really cool for people to come and talk about it. Yeah, Victoria, you have your hand up.
Oh yeah, it's a very incredible, great session. I really appreciate all these stories sharing at the end. I think like all been said is like very formal and educational, but like it can't beat a great story. So that's the best, sharing of experience that we can have. It's my first year too with EIR. Oh, and I just want to share with everyone. Last week, I took my kid to Palma in Brampton, and just stumbled over that they have a Women in STEM exhibition there. So I'm going to give you the link, and probably you can share with everybody. And if you're nearby, for sure, drop by. And the Palma itself is a really great spot in Brampton. It's like an historical building, and it's like a hidden gems that nobody know of. It seems like when we go there was pretty like relaxed, and then it's not crowded like the ROM in the middle of summer, and they got free parking, and it's very accessible too if you're going, by public transit. And yeah, so I'm going to share that info, and I'm going to pass it on to Leah. She's, my contact, and then you can spread it with everyone.
There's another really good way you can share that, Victoria. If you're not already signed in, you can join our Discord server. Spencer's cheering. Yeah. That's just Discord. A place where that's just such a perfect example of, you found something that is like a hidden gem. You can put it in Discord. It's just like another community tool. You don't have to be on it. It's not a requirement, but it's a place where you can just, share that link and people can see it. So I don't know if we have the link somewhere, if it's maybe in Sidekick, or we can put it in the chat if you haven't joined already. That's another good one. But that's awesome.
I need to try clicking on the Sidekick. The sign is like, I'm overwhelmed too.
Oh yeah.
No worries. Yeah, you can email it to me, and maybe I'll put it as a link somewhere in the next. I don't know. I'll see. But that sounds really cool.
So so you just mentioned it's called what? Discourse. So do we also have other resources up there that I can, benefit from?
Yes. Yeah. So Discord is just like chats. We can chat amongst ourselves, sort of like if you've used Slack before, or I'm not sure if you're maybe just even like your Teams channels, if that's what you're used to at work. But it's really, really user friendly. You just have to go in and create an account, and then you join our server basically. But we have lots of resources available. We have a whole library of lessons that you can tap into, where you can search up different activity ideas or presentations. There's links in there to other websites we've found that are really good. Like they might have other activity ideas sort of things. We have the YouTube channel that Leah or Spencer mentioned as well. If you want to ever refer back to any of the trainings, we have the whole playlist there. And then the website, EIR.ca. So there's lots there. Sarah's waving. Are you trying to get my attention?
And we have regional networks. So Victoria, you'll be invited to a regional network where you'll have a chance to talk to other engineers doing the same work. And they're definitely a great resource to bounce ideas off of.
One thing I want to add about like Discord and such is that if there's a resource that you're looking for and you just can't find it, just send a message to the Discord in whatever channel you think is appropriate, and then people will be able to answer questions. So either another EIR who knows where it is can tell you, or one of us can tell you, and just chat with people and just ask questions, answer questions. It's a great tool for that.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to sign in right away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe you should put the link in the chat, Spencer.
Yeah, I'll see if I can go find
I have it here. I sent it to someone just this morning, and I'm about to send it out to everyone. I just have it.
Okay.
One other thing I want to say is I really liked the comment earlier about this sharing stories as opposed to just being like really academic, but I think that's a great point. I think that's one thing that, like, we mentioned this last week, where there's a lot of research into how storytelling works as a method for teaching and learning and how effective it is. And I think, yeah, it's totally like teaching through storytelling is a really great tool. And especially it works very well as sort of as you're in EIR, where you're not really the teacher and like there's also a teacher with you, and it's sort of like you're just freshening it up for the students, because I'm sure that the teacher probably doesn't use stories very much. So if you're that fresh perspective and you're bringing stories into it, then you can, change it up. And I think it will be really great for the students to have that experience. Just works really well.
Oops, thanks, Maria. We do indeed have a mistake in our in our dates.
Did we put
Sorry.
23rd? Oh, we
The
did.
23rd.
That's our
We
bad.
may have
This is why
copied
we're
and
engineers.
pasted
This is
from
why we're
last year.
engineers.
Yeah, that's true.
Why
That
I'm
was
not an
probably.
English major.
We will change that for next time. Supposedly. It should be changed.
But it is the 27th next week, right? Oh my gosh, it's already the
Yes.
end of July. This is crazy.
Crazy.
I just see a question from Aaron in the chat. I'm not sure what are you, I'm not sure what you're referring to by the bias quiz. Do you mean the implicit bias quiz that we mentioned earlier in the slides? Okay, let me see if I
Yes,
can
someone posted it.
go.
Yeah, Sarah put the link in
This
the
one?
chat, and it's also and it's also in Sidekick.
Yeah.
Nick put
Yes.
the Sidekick link there as well. So
And if
either
you,
of those.
yeah, your invitation for next week, by the way, will have like the link to the to these slides and to the recording. So
yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
It's really interesting. I've done it. It's really interesting to kind of get some insight into what some of your own biases might be, just to learn a little bit more and be aware, right? Sometimes just knowing, oh, I do have a bias towards whatever it is.
I have a bias towards math. I really dig the mathematics.
So
Okay,
we
I
have
see it's 1
hit
o'clock,
our
right?
1 hour. Yeah, we have hit our 1 hour. So if you guys have to leave, that's totally fine. You can leave whenever. If you do have questions though, please say. We'll continue answering those. You can ask whenever. Thanks everyone for coming. We will stay in here a little bit longer in case anyone still has questions.
or ask them in Discord or email us.
Right.
We're
Email us
always
whenever.
available.
Ask in
Yeah.
Discord.
We're in all the places.
We're
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
We're everywhere.
Okay. Spencer, maybe stop the recording. And
Yeah.
if anyone wants to ask a private question, we have a